Ravens Vail is a dark fantasy horror anthology podcast that may contain explicit language and thematic elements not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Ravens Vail, a dark fantasy Southern Gothic horror anthology podcast set in the shadowy world of the Deep South. A convergent reality situated around what most of humanity has accepted as the truth. Obscured from human eyes, Ravens Vail is a mystical sanctuary intended to preserve the existence of its immortal inhabitants. The Mekori, commonly referred to as witches, have been hunted since before written history. The witches of the Highlands fled persecution to a new land that would come to be known as Appalachia. In these parts, you should always be leery of the things that scare witches. The veil is thin tonight, family. Let's see what darkness lies beyond.
Well, hey there, family. Come on in now. Don't be shy. Welcome back to Ravens Vail. This new year is just now rubbing the sleep out of its eyes, and Lord willing, 2026 will treat us a whole lot better than that cantankerous old 2025 ever thought about doing. As we step into this fresh turning of the wheel, we wanted to pause a spell and tell y'all plain and simple how much we appreciate every last one of you. You're the heartbeat of this family. The reason these stories keep wandering around long after most folks have forgotten they ever were told. And sweet mercy, did y'all ever show out for that Christmas episode? We saw every comment, and it warmed this old man's heart something fierce. I'll be dadgum. It went and turned into the most listened to episode we ever put out. Now today, we're going to step off our usual trail, just a hair, and wander out on a limb. I reckon it's high time I told you a little bit more about Sibyl's Aunt Helen. Bless her heart and God rest her soul. Helen was one of them good folks that the Lord Almighty stitched together with extra corners, and a few of those stitches weren't all that tight, if you catch my intentions. And if you'd ever had the pleasure of meeting her, you'd know exactly what I mean. So go on now, pull yourself up close to the fire, let that heat soak into your old bones, and lean in real careful-like. This tale, well, it's a peculiar one. Strange in the way only Helen could be strange. Sibyl sat quietly in her father's too-empty study. A deep quiet had settled over the house, the kind that comes after grief has worn everyone out. The only light came from a tall candle sputtering on the corner of his desk, throwing long, jittery shadows across the shelves crowded with ancient books, jars of dried herbs, and odd gadgets that Palmer had collected over his lengthy lifetime. The room smelled of musty paper and dried herbs, but Sibyl could still smell the faintest trace of his cologne, like he'd just stepped out for a moment and might come back if she waited long enough. A foolish part of her still held a tiny, trembling hope that he might walk through that door again. And Lord help her, she hated herself for letting that hope linger, knowing it only sharpened the sorrow. The dried tears on her face told more truth than she wanted to share. She kept her distance from the rest of the family and friends without a shred of apology, only showing up when it was just Aunt Ruby Bea and Petra, because they were the only ones she could stand to be near. Across her lap lay the family grimoire, thick and bound in worn leather that had seen more hands than she could imagine. Its pages were yellowed and soft with time against her fingertips. As she turned them, each word was like a thread, stitching her to a bloodline she had only ever known in pieces and parts. She cherished it Lord, she did. But tonight it felt heavier than usual. Her eyes were blurred with tears she didn't have the strength to shed anymore. Her heart ached with that hollow hurt that comes when a death's still fresh. The days blurred past her in grief, leaving her feeling alone in the silence. It was the kind of quiet that made her chest feel tight. She wanted her daddy. She could almost hear his voice, low, patient, a little amused, guiding her through all the things he would never get a chance to finish teaching her. Last night, she had had a dream. No, it was more than a dream. It was like her old night terrors. She'd gone back to the house and opened the trunk, only to find Palmer trapped. Then she'd woke up. She wasn't quite convinced it wasn't real, and when she had told Petra, he had thought it was just grief, but he had agreed to go to the house with her when she was ready. Would she ever be ready to make that journey on purpose? She didn't really know, but the guilt building around the idea of her daddy being in that horrid chest was making a convincing argument. Sitting there in the dim, flickering glow, surrounded by the remains of his life's work, she felt the truth settle deep in her bones. Palmer had been more than just her daddy. He was the steady hand on her shoulder, the one person who could read her heart clean through. He walked beside her as she began traveling through the life of a Mekori and their magic they'd both been born with, teaching her how to listen for what most folks never even noticed. Now the study felt too big without him, every corner echoing with the ghost of his easy laugh. The candle at her elbow sputtered and popped, throwing a thin ring of light that barely kept the shadows from spilling across the floorboards. Her thoughts drifted back to that long, hard road she and Petra had walked. Two bull-headed Mekori with more grit than good judgment, chasing this very book. They'd glinted home, scraped raw and bone-weary, only to learn that Palmer had slipped away while they were still out finding the grimoire. Now she sat in the hush of his study, the grimoire heavy across her knees like it knew the truth before she did. Candlelight jutted across the pages, and the old hurt rose up in her chest again, quick and mean as a briar snagging bare skin. More than anything, she wished Palmer were still here, steady and sure, telling her which way the path bent next. Their journey had been rough, twisting through country most folks with good sense avoided, and it finally carried them up to Helen, Sibyl's late mama, Mary's own sister, a peculiar, half-wild woman who tucked herself away on the jagged ridge of a mountain nobody dared to climb. Helen didn't so much live up there as she haunted it, keeping company with two old ravens and whatever old spirits still wandered those slopes. Her place wasn't what most folks would call a proper home, but it had a charm that settled into you. The old cottage, perched on a flat cliffside of the mountain, was surrounded by dense, almost impenetrable foliage with a lush, grassy meadow in the middle of the clearing. Helen's hovel, as she called it, was backed by the mountainside as if the mountain itself had decided to cradle it. Sturdy and quiet in its own way, a stone chimney rose proud beside the roof line, sending up a ribbon of wood smoke that smelled of pine and something faintly herbal, like Helen had tucked a spell or two into the fire. Wildflowers crowded around the footpath that led up to the cottage. The porch boards cracked in a friendly sort of way, like they were glad for the company and only spoke to say hello. The trees around weren't menacing, Just old mountain sentinels, their branches leaning in as if they had taken it upon themselves to watch over Helen. And perhaps they had. The whole patch held a soft, reverent hush, the kind that made you lower your voice without knowing why. It was quaint and lovely, touched by a bit of mountain magic, every inch of it as warm-hearted and as peculiar as Helen herself. Sibyl just couldn't get over the fact that she hadn't known the woman but a handful of hours, barely enough time to boil a pot of beans. But Lord have mercy, Helen had a way of settling herself in your mind and heart like she had been living there for years. When Petra and Sibyl finally made it up that crooked mountain path and through the bramble, Helen was already standing at the meadow's edge like she had felt them coming. Then, before either of them could think twice, she'd pulled Petra and Sibyl inside her world with a warmth that didn't match her thorny, briar patch edge one bit. And in that brief, uncanny visit, just a few hours tucked between daylight and dark, Sibyl found herself loving her. This odd, reclusive aunt who smelled of wood smoke, mountain herbs, and old secrets. She talked in riddles that somehow made sense, and she held on to her personal secrets the way others kept a pocket knife handy. That visit had closed itself out in pure heartbreak. Helen, wild and stubborn, had done the unthinkable in a moment that had left both Sibyl and Petra shook clean through. She had stepped off that high cliff as if answering an old grim calling none of them could name. It hadn't felt like simple sorrow or madness. It carried a weight all its own, the kind that runs older than Scripture and refuses to explain itself to mortal minds. Sibyl's memory of it still came in sharp, splintered pieces. She remembered the wind first, how it had risen up, sudden and furious, roaring like some wounded beast. And she remembered, most of all, the strange truth that settled over her in the silence after. That Helen's final purposeful act had cracked something open. It was an ending, sure enough. But it was also the first tremor of whatever waited on the far side of grief. It felt like a beginning shaped by sacrifice and the kind of love that doesn't ask permission before it changes you. Sibyl drew in a sharp breath, her fingers resting on a page that Helen had marked with a dry sprig of rosemary. As her fingers traced the delicate, almost trembling script on the page before her, Sibyl's eyes were drawn to something unexpected. There in the margin was a potion recipe written in Helen's unmistakable hand. A concoction meant to compel someone to tell the truth. And as intriguing as a truth potion was, it wasn't what caught her attention. It was the signature. Shimmering on the page, Helen's name faintly glowed as if a light was seeping around the edges of it. Compelled, Sibyl reached out and brushed her finger over the glowing signature. The moment her skin met the glowing script, the room dissolved. The candle's flame winked out, the heavy tome vanished into the shadows, and the study melted away until she was suspended in a swirling vision, an enchanted window into Helen's life. Sibyl could see everything, but she couldn't touch it. Watching without any way to step in, she was passing through the memories like a ghost no one noticed. Helen's childhood in Ravens Vail, her fierce solitude, the laughter that hid behind her guarded eyes, the sacrifice she had made for family, magic alike, The vision was disorienting, fragmented, and dreamlike. A snapshot of light and shadow that revealed the depths of Helen's being without words. Helen, in a small but confident voice, whispered in Sibyl's mind.
Oh, dear Sibyl, I wish things had been different, and you and I could have become more close. I need you to know that I don't regret my decision, but I really need you to understand who I was. I'm so glad that I finally got to meet you as an adult. You were such a sweet baby. Yeah, your mama brought you to my hovel a few times so I could meet you. I know all this seems sudden and strange, but I've known about your destiny for almost 100 years now. When your mama died, I became more determined to help you the best I could. This journey you're on, it ain't a good one, child. Not easy. Not easy at all. Well, I guess you should know. When this enchantment's over, I'm gonna leave you with a couple gifts. The first will be the ability to understand my book much better. Well, our book. Now it's your book. And the second gift will be a little boost to your sun magic. I guess we better get on with it. Oh, and one last thing. I need you to promise you're gonna take good care of Petra. He's a very special kind of boy. A lot of people are gonna turn their backs on him. Like they did me. But I always believe, child, love is love, and I love you.
And with those last words, the enchantment took effect, and the world around Sibyl blurred again. The world reshaped around Sibyl in a wash of white light. When the brightness settled, she was standing in the wide meadow just outside the tree line of Ravens Vail. The air was thick with that sweet, lazy kind of summer heat. An odd feeling pulled tight in her chest. She knew this place, knew what was coming, but she ain't got the faintest notion how she knew it. A burst of laughter cracked the stillness open. 3 girls came tearing through the grass, barefoot, breathless, and wild as a windstorm. Sibyl's breath caught in her throat. She knows those faces, knows those names. Lord help her. She shouldn't. And then the truth settled over her, like a soft blanket draped across her shoulders on a cold winter's night. These ain't just Helen's memories. She's seeing through her mama's eyes too, 'cause Mary had given her those memories too. The realization warmed and ached all at the same time. Helen's about 16. Long-legged and fast as a deer, running ahead, her jet black hair flying every which way, sunlight catching on it like a reflection of the sun on a wading creek. Ruby Bea, not more than 13, keeps steady behind her, hollering,
"Helen May, you slow down right this minute. Mama's gonna tan your hide if you run off and leave us again."
Helen just laughed, bright and sharp.
You gotta catch me first.
Mary, Her sweet mama, this little Mary, 10 years old and all heart, trails in happy bursts. She pauses every few steps to gather herbs from the meadow's edge, humming softly as she works, her hands gentle, even in play. Ruby Bea glanced back at her.
Mary girl, you keep picking every plant in sight. We're going to be out here till nightfall.
Mary hums a tune under her breath, soft and sweet, and just grins. The three of them tumble into the grass in a heap, laughing so hard they can't breathe. Aunt Ruby Bea swats Helen's arm.
You run like the devil's chasing you.
Helen pokes her in the ribs.
Maybe he is.
Mary leans over and tucks a sprig of mint behind Helen's ear.
Hold still.
She says gentle as a prayer, and Helen, rambunctious Helen, lets her. The sunlight warms their faces. The whole field seems like a pretty painting, with a soft breeze on a warm day, honeybees buzzing, and tiny little blue butterflies flitting all around. And for a heartbeat, the world is nothing but the three of them. Then the edge of the scene begins to dissolve, colors running, soft like paint left out in the rain, and the vision blurs as hours pass in seconds for Sibyl, smearing into a dark haze. And for a second, Sibyl thinks it's over. She feels a push or a yank. She wasn't quite sure, but the world reels and reshapes into the Ravens Vail woods. The meadow is gone. Now she stands deeper into the tree line, where the air is cold and there's the smell of moss and decay. Helen stands just ahead of her. 16, almost 17, tall and sharp-boned, her jet black hair wild, falling around her face in tangled waves. She stares into the deep woods, eyes fixed on something far beyond the tree line, something only she can see. Mary and Ruby Bea hung a few steps back, Mary clutching a bundle of herbs to her chest, knuckles white, the stems shaking in her hands. Ruby Bea plants herself in front of Mary, jaw set hard, eyes never leaving Helen's face. And there's a third girl, Jade Whitall, who's looking pale and worried. Sibyl gets the feeling that Jade is somehow very significant in Helen's life, but she can't seem to connect the dots. They've all seen this before, and it's coming more often now. The trances are crowding closer together now. She started walking around like she's sleepwalking, but it ain't. Helen's sun ascension is drawing near. A faint shimmer of heat ripples around her. Subtle, but it's there. The air bends just a hair, like the light itself is reaching for her. Her breath comes out shallow. Her pupils flicker gold and orange. She doesn't blink. She doesn't move. She listens. Because Helen was born with gifts uncommon even among the sun-touched. She can hear other people's thoughts. She can see into their futures. And she ain't learned to hold either one steady. Ruby Bea steps forward, voice low and pleading.
You gotta come back now. We're all here. Helen! Jade is here. She ain't feeling well.
Helen doesn't answer. Her mind is somewhere else. Somewhere far ahead in a future she never asked to glimpse. And deeper still, tucked in the shadows between the pines, Vrock Crossell watches her with a patience born of a predator from the void. Mary's voice, shaky and unsure, barely a breath.
She's slipping again, Bea.
Ruby Bea nods, worry tightening her whole face.
Her ascension's close. Too close for comfort.
Mary swallowed hard.
Do you reckon she can hear us at all?
Ruby Bea doesn't look away from Helen.
She hears everything. That's the trouble.
In a small, meek voice, Jade says,
Helen, come on back to me.
they all know what's coming. Soon, Helen will have to leave Ravensvail. She'll be taken to learn proper sun magic, trained, disciplined, shaped into whatever the Ascendant decides she ought to be. But for now, she stands frozen, staring into the deep woods, her mind flooded with voices and future and the cold, steady gaze of rock. Then, slowly, she inhales. The fire in her eye dims, the heat shimmering around her softens. Her shoulders sag like she's set down a heavy load, and she blinks once, twice, and the world settles back into her.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm really fine.
She says, voice thin as thread. Ruby Bea huffs under her breath.
Girl, you ain't fine and you know it.
Mary edges closer.
Helen, what'd you see this time?
Helen didn't answer. Not yet, her gaze flickering towards the dark between the trees, the place where Vrock waits, and something, like fear or maybe recognition, crosses her face. The temperature in the forest drops suddenly. The trees seem to smear into streaks of shadow and smoke, and the vision breaks. The world snaps around Sibyl like a trap springing shut. She's in a clearing. The earth is hard-packed under her feet. It's a cool autumn day, but the sun is beating down so bright it feels like needles on her skin. Sibyl can see her mama's wide eyes wandering and Helen's jittery nerves, both long gone, yet somehow still stammering through the moments like ghosts that never learned how to rest. Helen stands dead center in a clearing inside a protective circle that has been permanently burned into the earth. Her jet black hair is tied back, wild strands still licking at her cheeks in the heat. Beads of sweat cover her forehead and upper lip. She's holding a slender wand of pine wood. Beside her stands an older man, tall, stiff-backed, wrapped in a sun-colored robe that shimmers like the heat off of a summer road. His voice cuts the air clean.
All right now.
He says, drawling just enough to soften the edges.
Again, settle yourself. Shape the heat. Don't go letting it shape you.
Helen swallows, lifts the wand. Sibyl feels the surge before the light even shows. Heat blooming in Helen's chest, crawling up her arms, gathering in the wand's tip like it's fixing to burst. Too much, too fast, too bright. Panic flares sharp. Helen takes a slow, deep, trembling breath, closes her eyes, then calms. She exhales slowly. The heat narrows to a point, sharpens, obeys. A golden orb swells at the wand's tip, small, perfect, pulsing like a heartbeat made of hellfire. An older woman's eyes narrow, pleased but hiding it.
There you go. Now aim it and let her fly.
Helen plants her feet like she's setting to split wood.
All righty then.
She mutters half to herself.
Let's see if I can get this right today.
She flicks her wrist. The orb leaps forward, unraveling into a ribbon of hot, white fire, thin as a whip and twice as mean. It slices through the air in a clean arc and smacks a distant stone dead on, blowing it into a spray of sparks that dance like fireflies on their last night. Helen's grin breaks wide and wild.
Ha! Did you see that?
Sibyl feels Mary's pride swelling warm in her chest, and Helen's joy bright, fierce, burning like the magic she just loosed, and like a looking glass dropped on the floor, the memory shatters. The world lurches, then settles into the ridges and rooftops of Ravens Vail. And in the middle of the path, Sibyl sees Helen. 25 now, sharp-boned and sun-marked, her black hair braided long hanging down her back. Power hums under her skin like a second heartbeat. Sibyl feels Mary's awe swelling inside her, and beneath it, Helen's quiet, simmering certainty. Then the bell tolls. Deep clang from the Mekori temple, a warning bell. Her head snaps toward the sound.
Lord help us.
One of the villagers whispers.
This ain't a drill.
Before Sibyl can breathe, Helen glints, vanishing in a streak of blue light. The world jerks. They're outside the temple, the wands shimmering like thin, iridescent mist. Mekori elders stand frozen, staring past the boundaries.
Something hit him out yonder.
An elder mutters.
Ain't no normal animal.
Sibyl feels the memory tighten. Mary's fear, Helen's fury braided together like barbed wire. Helen steps past them without a word. The scene blurs, and they're in the middle of a fight. Shadows rush in the clearing. Teeth, claws, something half seen and hungry. Helen doesn't flinch. She lifts her wand. A golden orb blooms at its tip, hotter, brighter, bigger than she's ever cast.
All righty then.
She growls.
You picked the wrong one to mess with.
She snaps her wrist. A ribbon of hot white fire rips across the clearing, cutting down the first creature. Another orb forms. Another ribbon fires. Then another and another. She moves like a twister, precise and relentless, bending the forces of the universe to her unfiltered wrath. Sibyl feels her anger, not wild, not reckless, but righteous, protective, fierce as a mother bear. Her people are being attacked, her home threatened, and she will not abide it. Heat and light swallow the clearing. The air reeks of scorched earth and burnt flesh. Helen's voice cuts through the roar, low and furious.
Not in my valley.
The fire flares, and the memories shatter into darkness. The world knits itself back together around Sibyl, settling into the dim temple chamber where the air smells like beeswax and old prayers. Candles gutter along the walls, their flames trembling in the faint golden shimmer in one of Ravens Vail's healing wards. Helen lies in a low cot, wrapped in bandages from collarbone to ankle, her body a whole map of hurt and half-healed burns. She's alive, but barely. Sibyl feels Mary's relief first, thin, frayed, held together by hope and stubbornness, and beneath it, a tremor of dread that tastes like iron. Something ain't right. Something's missing. Helen stirs. Her eyelids flutter open, and the voices hit her like a landslide. A tidal wave of thoughts, hundreds, thousands slamming through her skull all at once. Every mind in Ravens Vail, every fear, every memory, every whisper folks never meant to say out loud. Sibyl feels the echo of it the way Mary felt it that day, a scream with no sound sharp enough to split bone. Helen clutches her head, gasping, a well of agony ripping from her burning throat.
Please make it stop. Lord above, please make it stop.
Mary grabs her hand, voice shaken.
Helen, look at me. You're home now. You're safe. I swear it.
But Helen couldn't hear just one voice in crowds of thousands speaking to her. She was drowning in everybody's thoughts. The healers rushed in, murmuring charms, laying cool hands on her temples, but nothing quieted the storm. The voices keep rising, sharper, meaner, overlapping until they're just noise. A hive of minds buzzing inside her skull, and then Mary makes the mistake of thinking her name. Jade Whittle. Helen's beloved, her anchor, her future. And Helen hears it. Her eyes snap to Mary's face, wild and refocused.
Where is she? Mary, where's Jade?
Mary freezes, breath catching like she's been smacked. Sibyl feels her grief twist tight, a knife turning slow.
Oh, sweet Helen. She didn't make it.
The words never got spoken. Helen's scream ripped through the chamber, not a sound, but a psychic shockwave, a blast of grief so fierce that Sibyl felt it in her teeth. The air itself shuddered. The voices surged back in, worse than before. Thoughts, fears, regrets. All of Ravens Vail is pouring into her like floodwater. Helen's mind buckles under the weight. She thrashes, sobbing, clawing at the air like she could dig the thoughts out with her bare hands. Her wounds tore, ooze and viscous yeller plasma as raw pink-white flesh ruptured, quickly flooding Mary's bandages with blood. A pain she could never notice, not while she was swallowed by the tearing of her soul. The healers tried to hold her down as they worked, but she's stronger than all of them. Grief strong, broken strong.
Jade!
She cries out, voice torn out of her.
Jade, please don't leave me.
Ruby Bea whispers.
Nadira, help us. She's hearing all of us at once.
The memory trembled, overloaded, edges blurring, and darkness took over Sibyl's mind. The next memory didn't come all at once. It drifted in slow, like fog rolling off the Smoky Mountains. Exhaustion settling over everything. Sibyl feels 3 long years of strain pressing down on her. Mary's strain. the kind that hollows a person out from the inside, leaving only the shell to keep going. Helen sits curled on the floor of their childhood home, rocking gently, hands clamped tight over her ears. Her once bright eyes are dull now, unfocused. The voices never quit. Only when she's put to sleep with the saloony spell does she get any peace. Ruby Bea kneels beside her, whispering soft nothings. Mary stands in the doorway, shoulders sagging, face drawn tight with grief. They've tried everything: charms, wards, silencing spells, mind-mending enchantments, ancient rites, forbidden ones. Every last attempt ended the same. Helen cannot be left alone. She cannot rest without screaming. She cannot sleep without the sleeping spell.
We can't leave her in the saloony spell too long, or one day we'll pull her out and she won't come back all the way.
A quiet filled the room. It were the kind of quiet that feels like violence, a threat bared to all forced to share in its dread. Brave Mary's voice breaks the silence, with a hope that cuts like a knife without a handle.
I found it. I found a place.
Ruby Bea's head snaps up.
Where at?
Mary hesitates, and Sibyl feels a tremor of nerve ripple through her stomach. Ruby Bea rises to her feet.
Mary, honey, tell me.
Mary's breath shivers. She looks at her sister, the one who's carried this burden right alongside her, the one who deserves the truth. Her voice cracks open.
The voices will stop there.
Ruby Bea goes still, like the world itself forgot to turn.
But she can't make it on her own.
Mary swallows hard, forcing the words out.
We're gonna lose her if we don't let her go. She has to be alone, far from everything and everyone.
Ruby Bea's face folds, grief and understanding hitting her at the same time. She whispers,
Lord, help us. You're saying this is the only way?
This is the only place that she'll ever know peace.
Mary murmurs.
She won't ever be able to come home.
The scene shifts. Mary glints them away, Helen held tight in her arms like something fragile and precious. The world streaks into color and wind. Then they're standing on a small plateau high in the mountains. A lush green meadow spreads out beneath them. A thick grove of ancient forest circles the meadow like time-worn sentinels. And at the meadow's edge, pressed against the towering mountain rising straight into the clouds, Mary and Ruby begin to build, not with tools, not with timber, with magic. Mary presses her palm to the earth, whispering old words, and the ground trembles. Stones rise from the soil, fitting themselves together like they've been waiting centuries to come home. Ruby Bea calls the wind, shaping it into scaffolding made of shimmering light. Walls form, a hearth takes shape. The roof unfurls beneath a broad outcropping of stone that shields the cottage from rain, but opens it to the morning sun. Behind the cottage, the mountain stands guardian, solid, ancient, unmoving. Helen's backyard is like a fortress carved by God himself. The cottage looks as if the mountain offered it up willingly. A refuge, a cradle, a place where Helen can finally breathe. Helen lays in the grass, eyes closed, face tipped up towards the light, sleeping, peaceful, fragile, almost childlike. Mary utters, "Sulini Tolo." Helen shifts her head, confused. The noise is almost gone, and for the first time in years, her face softens, her shoulders ease, her breath steadies. She could still hear Mary and Ruby Bea's thoughts, but it's more like normal conversation. Ruby Bea whispers, voice trembling.
Look at her, Mary. It worked. It really worked.
Mary's heart breaks with relief.
Sweet baby Jesus, thank the Lord.
Mary walks the perimeter of the grove, pressing her palms to bark and stone, weaving wards into the forest, spells to turn travelers away, to cloud the minds of anyone who wanders too close, to hide this place from the world. Ruby Bea helps her guide Helen into the newly built cottage, simple, warm, and safe. A home born of magic and necessity. When it's done, Helen glints them both back to Ravensvail. Ruby Bea and Mary do not feel joy, nor do they feel victory. Only the quiet ache and calm of knowing they've done the one thing left to do. And Helen, for the first time in 3 years, feels calm. Hears the sound of nature, and she weeps. The meadow blurs, the memory shadow, the enchantment was disruptive, a purposeful chaos to shatter Sibyl's understanding and rebuild it anew. It forced her to confront truths she had not known she sought, to feel the loneliness, the love, the pain, and the stubborn will of a woman who had given her life to protect them. And as the vision faded, the study slowly reassembled around her, the shimmering signature dimmed to a soft glow. Sibyl knew she had been given a rare gift, a glimpse into the heart of her family's magic and the woman who had shaped it in ways she had only begun to understand. With a deep, steadying breath, she closed the book gently, feeling less alone, ready to carry Helen's legacy forward, no matter the cost. Well now, family, I reckon this is where we'll part ways for the evening. The coal's sliding down off the ridge, and that mountain breeze is starting to nip like it's got something to prove. Best y'all mosey on before the snow settles thick enough to freeze you to death. Walk easy. Keep your lanterns trimmed. Swing back by whenever the notion hits you. There's always another tail waiting to stretch its legs. Now, family, you adults have a few chores to do. Go on over to ravensvail.com and see about doing your chores on social media. Follow us on all the social media platforms that we've made available just for you folks. Like, listen, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a good rating and a kind comment. You can find the Ravensvail podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you haven't already, just search for Ravensvail Podcast. And again, make sure you hit that follow button to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Oh, and tell a friend about us, won't you? So until next time, family, see you soon.
The Ravensvail Podcast is a production of Small Raven Media. Today's story was written, directed, and narrated by Ed Bolden Greer. The voice of Ruby Bea Atworth was performed by Lena Perkins. The voice of Mary Ashford was performed by Veronica Williams. The voice of Helen Ashworth was performed by Kaneda Mills-Ryder. The voice of Jeremiah Grieger was performed by Jared Bolden Greer. The voice of Madeline Callum was performed by Donna Funk. The voice of Jade Whithall was performed by A.J. Downey. The voice of Beatrice Storch was performed by Grace Seaton. The voice of Edgar Bellicote was performed by Elijah Seaton. The voice of Oliver Borthwick was performed by Isaac Miller. Audio engineering and sound design by Nick Devan and Nikki D. Sound. Copyrighted 2026, Small Raven Media. All rights reserved.